Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is a Ukraine War News Update, the first part thereof for the 28th of June 2025. Sorry it's a little bit late, Saturday and all that. We are going to start with the Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before, all the usual caveats apply, and we have some pretty interesting figures here. Notably, most notably, 4 aircraft, and I reported that piece of news last night in a breaking news update once I got home from the cinema. Where are you? Here you are, here somewhere, yeah. So Ukraine destroyed 4 Su-34 aircraft is the report. Some saying 2 were destroyed, 2 were heavily damaged. I presume the heavily damaged basically qualified for going on that list. The Su-34 is classed as a frontline fighter bomber used for dropping guided aerial bombs, including those with gliding and correction modules. So these guided glide bombs that are causing such havoc, the Ukrainians looking to take them out at source. We have 1,000 personnel lost in the last 24 hours, 1 tank, 12 troop-carrying AFVs. Both of those last 2 categories are below the daily average. And we have 35 artillery systems. That's above the daily average again after slipping down below it yesterday. 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. That's good news. And 131 vehicles and fuel tanks. Pretty useful there. Quite a lot of drones and cruise missiles. That's from 2 nights ago, not from last night. So a number of good categories, particularly the aircraft. I mean, some are saying that's $200 million worth of kit. But like I say, putting a monetary value on some of this kit is kind of pointless. It's not like they are able to easily build them. So essentially they could cost either $2 or $2 gazillion. Doesn't really matter. If you can't build them, then you've got problems. Okay, so moving on, we have another video here of captured Russians, this time in the Tourette's direction. The reason I'm including that is because that shows the Ukrainians are still on the offensive in some areas there, or active defense. They are defending against the Russians. The Russians are actually putting them under immense pressure in the Tourette's direction. So that's why I thought that was significant. A frontline report. This is probably from one of reporting from Ukraine's videos. Euromide Press transcribes them and sets them up as articles on a daily basis. So Ukraine set a forest trap in Sumy. A Russian battalion vanished inside. Ukrainian forces killed the battalion commander Andrei Yartsev and overran his command post, forcing dozens of Russian soldiers to surrender. And we saw quite a few surrendered Russian soldiers in the area. I reported on that over the last few days. It looks like the Ukrainians are having quite a bit more success up in Sumy than the Russians at the moment. So that's good news, although in other places it's particularly concerning. Now, what else do we have? On June the 18th, 2025, so that's going back 10 days, a missile strike hit a shelter used by Russia's 346th Brigade near Polohy on the Zaporizhia front, so on the southern front. The impact caused a structure to collapse and those inside reportedly suffocated due to lack of oxygen. 11 servicemen were killed, including 3 officers, and that can be translated there. You can read the original source material, and it actually names the 3 officers who were killed. So a successful strike for the Ukrainians there 10 days ago. And then we've already heard about those 4 aircraft being taken out. That's excellent news. That's in Volgograd. And it was a case of it being 400 kilometers from the front lines or from the Ukrainian border. Not quite sure, but yeah, fair distance away, being hit by drones, I believe. And in fact, there's footage of the destruction at an airbase in Crimea as well to go alongside that. That was actually 2 nights ago, but we found out about it last night. And then last night, an airbase in Crimea was hit, and I think there's a helicopter that's been taken out as well there. So videos here show fighters taking out 2 Russian 2S-1 Grodzika howitzers and 8 camouflage artillery guns in Kursk. So here is a single video showing 10 howitzers being taken out. Now, when you look at this number, 35 artillery systems, quite often we have been like, how the hell are they taking out so many pieces of artillery? And, you know, where's the evidence of this? And there are some that claim, you know, this is the one category that is particularly unrealistic over the last sort of 6 months. I think the aircraft category and helicopters is maybe skewed from some incorrect data right at the beginning of the war, but now they're generally accurate. So what's added onto that is accurate. Artillery systems, you know, people have been questioning whether they really are taking out, say, some days 50, 60, 70, 80 bits of artillery when it's at its worst, but then most days consistently above the daily average. But then I've been showing you these sources recently that have been saying, wow, even Kriegsforscher up in, who was up in the Kursk area himself, I don't know where he is at the moment. So someone who works in one of these units actually saying, wow, we've just taken out however many bits of artillery in just a few days or whatever it was the other day. It's like, I thought that number was over before, even, as a fighter. And I'm like, now I understand where it's coming from. So here we have 10 guns taken out in one montage, and that's just one small area, no doubt, on the front line. Here we've got and I talked about this unit the other day in the context of the same discussion, but here is a larger montage of their work. And in just 2 weeks, soldiers of the CSO Alpha Battalion, SBU, from the SBU, used strike drones and other firepower to hit 39 tanks, 78 APCs, 124 artillery systems. There's one unit in 2 weeks taking out 124 artillery systems, 14 pieces of air defense, 10 pieces of electronic warfare, 649 vehicles, 50 drones, 186 antenna, 838 enemy positions, 17 ammunition depots, 7 fuel and lubricant depots, 842 occupiers. This one unit doing that is absolutely extraordinary. And of course, okay, you might say, well, what's the evidence of that? But then they do provide this evidence as a Forpost drone. We're going to talk about that in a second. So yeah, some really significant numbers there. And yet again, another day of more guided glide bomb successes for the Ukrainians. 3 SDBs here, small diameter bombs. Might not even be guided glide bombs here, but anyway, I don't know. Strike on a Russian drone operator base. Again, I keep talking about this. The high value targets, the drone operators are high value targets being spotted by drones, and then you call in the aviation, and aviation is doing a real turn for the Ukrainians here in taking out these drone operator bases. Ukrainian aviation with GBU-62 bombs here strike Russian forces in Novostroysk in the Pokrovsk area. So the aviation now starting to be used effectively, or probably not starting, but here's evidence of it being used effectively around Pokrovsk, an area where the Ukrainians are under a lot of pressure, particularly northeast of there, as they are attempting to surround Konstantinivka. So yeah, aviation this activity could suggest more of a parity there, like we've seen up in Sumy. I don't know, but over the course of the war, the Ukrainians have worked really hard to degrade the Russian air defenses. So it could be that aviation is starting to play a greater and greater role for the Ukrainians, and that's why they need their own guided glide bombs. Now, talking about guided glide bombs, there has been reported this morning a claim of a Kharb attack on Dnipro that was 100 kilometers in range. So this is pretty extraordinary. At around 11:30 in the morning, an aerial target launched from an enemy tactical aircraft was detected from the airspace of the temporarily occupied territory of Zaporizhia region. The target flew over 100 kilometers and was shot down by air defenses outside the city of Dnipro. So it was shot down. The type of air target will be determined after examining the wreckage of the crash site, but it's thought to be a guided glide bomb traveling 100 kilometers. Now people are saying actually it was the newest Russian bomb, the Grom-1, shot down near Dnipro. Now, I've reported on Grom-1 since the beginning of the war. I remember the first time I reported on this, it was some wreckage of a Grom-1 on the ground, and they were like, oh, look, this new bomb. This article is going back to February 2024, but there was another one from 2023 as well. So these Groms are new, but they have been used right throughout the war. What are they? So Russia's new hybrid Grom missile becoming key to air attacks on Ukraine, said this article back in 24. As Moscow launches the heaviest bombardment in Ukraine in months, evidence suggests that it's now regularly deploying Grom hybrid missiles that can evade some high-tech Western air defense systems. So what you need to know about it here is comparison with the US JDAM guidance module. The Grom-1 missile boasts a range of 120 kilometers, 75 miles, and sets it apart as its unique, what sets it apart as its unique design. The bomb rocket hybrid features deployable wings, which enhance both its range and accuracy. In contrast, its predecessor, the X-38, only has a range of 40 kilometers, 25 miles. The Grom-1 also has the ability to circumvent advanced Western air defense systems located near the front lines, making it a useful asset for Russian forces. The hybrid missile is equipped with a high explosive fragmentation warhead that varies in weight up to 480 kilograms. Wow. Russian state media has also claimed the existence of a thermobaric version of the missile, but this has not been independently verified. Russian agencies have also drawn comparisons between the Grom and the US military's JDAM, a guidance module used to upgrade unguided bombs. However, the Russian hybrid missile has yet to demonstrate that it has reached the same level of effectiveness and precision as the American guidance kit. So it's effectively a guided glide bomb stroke missile. It's some kind of hybrid. And here it was used in Dnipro, apparently, and it was shot down by air defense. So that's really good, but it packs quite a punch there. Okay, now a pretty pretty spectacular destruction of a North Korean M1991 240mm multiple launch rocket system. I'm not going to play this. I'll just show you frames of it because then YouTube gets a bit angsty. So you had a drone that was flying along and it flies into the back of this MLRS and that sets it off. This is a quite remarkable video actually caught on drone spotter camera, and it sets off the missiles that then fire out the front, and as it does so there's a massive explosion as well right throughout it that blows out all the windows, and yeah, you can see there the whole cabin. I mean, that is one broken piece of kit now, but it also, fires off its rockets as well for some of its rockets forward. Yeah, brilliant. So there you go, and that is the end of that piece of kit. That is, for goodness sake, just the usability of this annoys me. So there you go. Oops, it looks like there was also a poor person getting out the front of that too. So it looks like it was actually full of crew too, or at least some crew. So that was a pretty good hit for the Ukrainians there. Railway between Melitopol and Tokmak. I reported this yesterday in my extra video on the railways being targeted. So this is the claim that the railway between Melitopol and Tokmak in the occupied part of Zaporizhzhia is becoming a problem for Russia. Another train has allegedly been denazified by drones very near where the previous hit happened. It's not date stamped, so impossible to be 100% certain, but it appears that there was another train hit there, and this drone went into the side of the locomotive, but battle damage assessment isn't easy to come by. This is a critical route for Russian supplies to reach the front line. If Ukraine gets fire control here, it's big. Interesting fact, the strike happened in Peterhan village, founded by Germans 220 years ago. It reverted to its name recently after Soviets called it Kutuzovka. So there you go. Okay, then we see this video, which is Ukrainian interceptor drones are successfully neutralizing Russia's expensive Forpost type multifunctional drones, each valued at over $7 million. So these are a bit sort of like, I guess, your Reaper drones, your MQ-9 American Reaper drones. These can carry missiles as well as being reconnaissance drones. They are made under license. Are they licensed Israeli drones as well? Am I right in thinking that? Anyway, good news to see the Ukrainians using interceptor drones to take out all sorts of valuable kit. Now, here's a video that's not easy to watch. It's a Ukrainian PZB or PVB, PBV actually, 302 APC, one of the Swedish provided ones. And this person said, terrifying video of 6 FPV drones working together to destroy a Ukrainian PBV 302 APC. While 4 hit the vehicle, 2 others waited outside to hit the crew and infantry who were evacuating the vehicle. So this is, it's horrible to watch. I won't show it to you particularly, other than to say, if you've got 6 drones working in unison like a pack of hyenas biting at the heels of this antelope, then eventually, unfortunately, the prey falls victim to the predator. And 6 of these working in a pack, taking out the vehicle, one hit, then another, and then eventually it comes to a standstill. It does a good job to actually withstand some of the drones before eventually come to a standstill, and then another couple of drones waiting for people to get out, and then hitting the drones, and it fundamentally hitting the personnel, and it explodes all around there. And yeah, you're thinking the worst for all the people involved. So just, because I often show you a lot of Ukrainian successes, the Russians are still doing an awful lot of damage to the Ukrainians, of course. Ukraine has completed over 50% of its planned fortification work for 2025, according to the Defense Minister Rustem Umerov. The construction approach has shifted in response to Russia's tactics, now focusing on smaller, drone-shielded strongpoints, rather than like massive, huge ditches out in the middle of nowhere. Like out in the open fields, you get these huge trenches zigzagging across these kind of straight lines, or straight zigzag lines, or networks of them, but large and open. They're reverting to digging trenches in tree lines, having these smaller networks and dugouts that are protected by the natural environment, by the foliage and whatnot. And yeah, so a change of design there. Now focusing on smaller drone-shielded strongpoints designed to counter infantry assault groups supported by drones. Okay, and then we hear that pro-Ukraine partisans have disrupted Russian military logistics in occupied Donetsk Oblast, according to the group there, setting fire to a signal cabinet that helps to control traffic on a railway line near Yezhny Varta in Donetsk Oblast. So keeping on with that kind of activity, always useful. Right, now moving on to distant strikes. Overnight, Ukrainian air defences shot down 22 out of the 23. So another night of exceptionally good interception, although very few drones sent last night. 23 is one of the lowest we've seen for a long time. I don't know what that tells us about what's going on. Are they stockpiling? I saw a graph of a histogram of the different... it's technically a bar chart. Over time of how many strikes, how many drones they have sent at Ukraine every night, and you can see a pattern of stockpiling big, pretty much. And so some were predicting that at the end of this week there'd be a huge drone wave, but actually that took place now. Was it 2 nights ago? And they had really good interception rate for that. And really good interception rate here, where 22 out of 23 taken out, 21 destroyed by firepower, 1 jammed by electronic warfare, 1 strike was recorded in Odessa, debris fell in 8 locations. Now, I'm not quite sure what happened in Odessa, but we'll get there in a second. I don't know which one hit Odessa, whether it was that's a single one that got through, slammed into a residential building, or whether that was the one that was jammed by electronic warfare, or whether that was one that was kind of scare quotes destroyed by firepower, maybe sent off course and slammed into a residential building. I don't know. But anyway, before we get there, Russia can afford to continuously attack Ukraine with a large number of shahids because it significantly increased its production capacity, according to Le Monde. Absolutely, we know this. Shahids are now completely produced in Russia. They are assembled in Tatarstan by hundreds of women from Africa. We also know this. And they're also sending 25,000 North Koreans there too. A Whiteshahid of Iranian production, which has artificial intelligence, a camera and a feedback channel for the operator, was shot down in Sumy region. Now, I don't know, having just heard none of them are made in Iran anymore, they're all made in Russia. I'm not sure what to make of this, but we have heard that the Whiteshahids have autonomous capabilities and they're going back to making these Whiteshahids. I don't know why the color of the paint has anything to do with the capability there. I don't know if anyone can help me out with that. But it's the idea that some of these white ones are now, have been upgraded to allow for AI computation and whatnot. Right, Russia did attack a key energy facility in the Kherson area over the last couple of days, plunging parts of it into darkness, said the governor. Russia decided to plunge Kherson Oblast into darkness. Prokudin wrote on Telegram, he said that the attack has disrupted electricity supply to multiple settlements. So that's a challenge there. And then we hear that over the course of the day yesterday, 10 Ukrainians were killed. And there seems to be a lot of Ukrainians dying, a lot of civilians dying. I think we're at a real bad patch for civilian deaths in Ukraine. In some of these hot points, particularly in, I guess, Druzhkivka, Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka, that kind of area. That's going to be really challenging. And yesterday, over 50 were injured, 10 were killed. Ukrainian forces down 21 out of the 23 drones. So here, 21 out of 23. So there were 2 that got through. I couldn't do my maths. 22 out of 23 there. Okay, well, there or thereabouts. So that's Kyiv Independent. Christian Thiel's here, quoting from Reuters. 2 people were killed and at least 14 wounded when a Russian drone smashed into the residential high-rise building in Ukraine's Black Sea city of Odessa. So don't know why that hit that residential building. Was it what was intended? Was it electronic warfare? Was it sent off course by interception or whatever? But slammed into a residential building there. And 2 people were killed, 14 wounded. And there's some pretty horrible scenes coming from there of children being evacuated and all sorts going on. That was going on in Odessa. So a bit of tough times for some people there. Direct hit on that 9th floor set the building ablaze. A rescuer carries a 3-year-old. So that's a 3-year-old out of the smoke. It carries a smoke-inhaling 3-year-old out as his mother runs behind. The blast wave through us. Our neighbour was covered in blood, is the quote there. So you see the emergency services working hard to save the people in that residential area of Odessa. And then we hear that the Ukrainians last night struck an airfield in Crimea, according to Krymsky Viter. It's the Kirovskoye airfield. There were 5 to 6 explosions, most likely warehouses and air defense facilities were hit. There was also a hit on one of the aircraft parking lots. A burning helicopter is visible, and fuel tanks of Su fighters also exploded. So I'm trying to work out, I don't know if that's the helicopter there, because you certainly see another helicopter here that isn't, you see several. There's a helicopter there that's not burning, and there's an explosion near that one. So I don't quite know where. You've got another helicopter over here, but that's not burning either. So I don't know what the helicopter is that's burning, but one of these areas of glowing fire indicates apparently that a helicopter's burning. So that's good news. Ukrainians hitting another airfield and taking out potentially another aircraft. We also have a substation that was hit in Belgorod. That is burning this morning, and that I don't know if that is a strike from a drone or whether that was a careless smoker or sabotage or whatever. But yeah, basically you've got Belgorod substation burning. So hopefully that's causing a bit of a headache for the Russians there. Okay. Smoke is coming from the 120th Arsenal, the main missile and artillery directorate in Bryansk, according to reports. That was from this morning as well. Now, I don't know. I know Bryansk was hit yesterday, and there was evidence of burning and fires and smoke and whatnot. But I don't know if that's a different incident or the same place having trouble. Right, then we move on to. So I mean, all things considered, I think Ukrainians have had a fairly useful last 24 hours, striking some significant aircraft and also concentrating on train logistics. They're having some success there. They're using aviation pretty effectively, but they're also in under a lot of pressure on the front lines in certain areas. So here we have Syrsky himself talking about how on the Forpost front, Russia has amassed around 111,000 troops, the largest enemy grouping to date, according to your commander-in-chief. They're doing this not just for any operational gain, but mainly for propaganda to create a psychological effect. Yes, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be throwing them at the front lines, and certainly around the Toretsk area, Konstantinivka. On the way to Pokrovsk, things are very challenging for the Ukrainians. But not just there, actually, a number of places up and down the front line. Now, here we have Joran and the 3rd Assault. I think this is the 3rd Assault Brigade from the Ukrainians. saying, while our foreign partners pretend to somehow influence the war, we have a very bad situation at the front. In Donetsk region, the enemy has taken a high pace of advance and continues to maintain it. They're also advancing very actively in Kharkiv region, so that's up in the north around maybe Kupiansk, maybe in some of the other areas there. New forces have been transferred to the Zaporizhia direction. As for the Sumy region, I'm sure that they will again intensify assault operations there. I don't want to overdo it, but summer and autumn will be shitty. Also, considering the constant shelling of peaceful cities, the Cossacks are now investing a lot of effort in inflicting maximum destruction, in advancing at any cost, that is, in the ability to convince everyone of their complete dominance on the battlefield. It is the front that decides everything, and now it is extremely important to concentrate all attention around it. As an unnecessary reminder to all those who are tired and want to stay away, everyone is tired, but our mood has no effect on the enemy's actions. So that's a bit of a corrective there, bit of a, not so much doomsaying, but the reality is that the Russians are hugely, intensely attacking across the front line, although, also some of the numbers have dipped compared to what it was like around the winter period, but it seems that the Russians could well be mounting to try and inflict maximum damage to the Ukrainians. Maybe again, sign of impending forced negotiations. With that in mind, the Russians are attacking as much as they possibly can. Now, we've heard of 25,000 North Koreans going to Yelabuga to help in the Shahid factory. We've heard of 6,000 potential troops going to maybe the Kursk area from North Korea, and then we hear that maybe more are going to be sent to fight for Russia from North Korea. So those three elements are very concerning for the Ukrainians. And then you hear this: Russia will involve Afghans to work in temporary occupied territories of Ukraine. The challenge for the Ukrainians here is that Afghans going to Russia is alleviating what should be a really big pressure, an economic pressure of a labour shortage, because they sent so many people to war, or lots of people evading going to war. You get a brain drain and people leaving Russia, but many are sent to war. And if you are getting in North Koreans to do work for you in Yelabuga, if you're getting in, and even if they take that back to North Korea, you're still getting them to work for your military industrial complex. If you're getting Afghans to come in and work in whatever capacity, then you are alleviating the labour shortage and the inflationary pressures there, and also just the manpower shortage in general. It means that actually you can then send more Russians off to war if you're getting more Afghanis in. And we know that they are starting to work very closely with the Taliban, even flying the Taliban flag at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum the other day. The Taliban was there. So this is an axis of evil, and they are now drawing on the resources of the Afghanis. And you may laugh that off, but just as the Russians do, treat these as just think of it almost mathematically. The Russians are just treating these as human beings to do a certain job. These are human resources. Bring them in, do that, can move some of these from there to here, and it just means the end result is that they can prolong the war. This protracts the war and allows Russia to keep up the pressure on the Ukrainians in a way that the Ukrainians aren't doing this. They aren't getting like tens of thousands of workers and forces in from all over the shop. They might have the odd fighter in the International Legion, but I don't think it's to the degree that Russia is able to draw on allied axis, if you like, forces and personnel. Here we have, well, as Tim White says, absolute cynicism. The Russian state news agency is now paying a talking head to give the reason they need to capture Dnipropetrovsk. So this is this other oblast that if they get a proper toehold in, then they can add it to their constitution and say, actually, we own Dnipropetrovsk as well. We want that as part of the negotiations. So from protecting Russian speakers, whom they then killed, to removing Nazis, to removing phone scammers. So this is the reasoning that you're seeing coming from RAO Nosti in this case. Dnipropetrovsk has become the capital of fraudsters. There are more than 350 call centers there, Deputy Chairman of the Board of Sberbank Stanislav Kuznetsov told RAO Novosti. According to him, the scammers are assisted by the Ukrainian authorities providing premises and services. In addition, the Dnipropetrovsk region is home to a population that speaks Russian with a minimal accent. If we take, for example, the western regions of Ukraine, and even if they speak Russian, the accent is immediately readable. And this is actually the main trigger for the successful work of the hacker or a telephone scammer in such call centers. So in other words, Dnipropetrovsk, people that speak Russian with a more of a Russian accent, are being used in these call centers, blah, 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 blah. So that gives us permission to send in these Grom missiles and or hybrid missiles and get a toehold in there and claim it as ours. These are Russian speakers and we need to stop these scammers, etc., etc. Now, Trump said some pretty egregious things again yesterday. The whole positive sounds coming from NATO didn't last very long. And all it took was Putin announcing things in public. And actually, this is what you have, a dialogue between Putin and Trump. So Putin says, I have great respect for the current president of the United States. And we can listen to him say this.
Я отношусь к действующему президенту Соединенных Штатов с большим уважением. Он прошел очень тяжелый, сложный и небезопасный.
He has come a very hard, difficult and dangerous path to return to power and to the White House. We all know that very well.
Some nice statements today. Did you see the statements? Very nice. Vladimir Putin made some very nice statements today.
He can't stop saying nice things about Putin. All Putin needs to do is say some nice things about Trump. And Trump is all over it. He loves it. He's fawning over Putin. He's so easily manipulatable, this man. It's so weak.
Look, he respects our country again. He didn't respect it a year ago, I can tell you right now. But Putin respects our country. And President Xi of China respects our country. And Kim Jong-un they respect our country.
He never talks about how, democratically elected leaders respect the US. He's always saying positive things about dictators. I was saying this last night when I went to the cinema to watch 28 Years Later. I went to the pub afterwards with my mates, and I was saying, look, tell me one night, because my friends are saying, have you seen The Apprentice, the documentary on Trump about how he got to where he is? And I was like, no, I haven't. I'd like to see it. But actually, everything I was telling them everything about Trump that was in the documentary. Roy Cohn, protege of Roy Cohn, blah, blah, blah. And how he got to where he is and how he sees everything as a real estate mogul and blah, blah, blah. But I said to my friends, look, tell me one thing you've ever heard Trump say that is positive concerning a democratically elected leader. I mean, the other day he said some fairly nice things about Starmer, and that was so odd that everyone's like, oh, he said some nice, but generally he doesn't say anything nice about democratically elected leaders, and he always says nice things about dictators. And that should tell you everything you need to know, because the man wants to be a dictator. He loves dictators, and listen to him just give it large about the dictators.
He respects our country, and President Xi of China respects our country, and Kim Jong-un they respect our country again. We were not a country that was respected just a year ago. We had a president that was incompetent. We had bad people circulating around this desk, this beautiful, resolute desk. They had, I guess, evil intentions. You couldn't be that stupid. I mean, they had evil intentions.
What are you talking about? So all it takes is for a dictator to say nice things and oh, look, dictators really respect our country now. They didn't used to, but now all the worst people in the world respect our country. Wonder why they respect your country. Oh, yeah, because A, you're manipulatable, and B, you're sliding towards dictatorship. Doug Klain, who actually I think had he was brought in the end to, I think, Biden administration, I can't remember what position he had if POTUS had given Ukraine the weapons it needs to defend itself, would Russia be in possession of the new lithium field today? Perhaps not. So Russia, as I reported yesterday, has taken control of this lithium field. It's not that big, but it has a lot of very vital natural resources that aren't just lithium either. If we arm Ukraine, Ukrainians can liberate their territory and people, including critical minerals that Trump is interested in. Thing is, I bet Trump would be like, it doesn't matter who has them. We do a minerals deal with a rare earth deal with Ukraine, or we normalize relationships with Russia and do a deal with Russia. doesn't really matter which side has it. And this is pretty cool, right? Ukrainian armed forces soldiers share combat experience of adjusting HIMARS strikes with the US military using the Leleka 100 drone during the Sea Breeze 2025 exercises in Romania. Or, in other words, translated, the Ukrainians are training the Americans. The Ukrainians are training the Americans. This is why Ukraine will be very useful in NATO. This is why it is very useful to help Ukraine in this war, because you are learning from the Ukrainians. They are the ones who have the most recent experience of fighting a modern war, much more so than any other NATO nation. It would be a benefit to NATO if these guys were in NATO. And so there you go. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you so much. I'm going to go back to listening to... I used to be obsessed with music. I went to gazillions of concerts and festivals when I was younger. And then I got obsessed with philosophy. Now I'm obsessed with geopolitics. Maybe I'm just obsessive. Anyway, I've got the new Pulp album and the new the Last Dinner Party album. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time listening to music while I prepare for my next videos. So that's what I'm going to do on this Saturday afternoon now. And if you didn't want to know that, tough luck. You know it now. Take care. Speak soon.